you bow with me, please? Lord Jesus, we are so very grateful that you loved us enough to give your life for us. Lord, you experienced the worst horror that any person could have ever experienced at the hands of sinful men. You were tried as a common criminal. You were put to death, Lord, but death could not hold you. You walked out of that grave alive forevermore, and it's because you live that we have the hope of eternal life. And so, Lord, as we commemorate this great sacrifice that you made on our behalf this morning, help us to realize, God, that you loved us. You loved us so much that you died in our place. And for that, we are eternally grateful. Amen. May God bless you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Jackie. We have been talking for the last month on Sunday morning about why bad things happen to good people. And we've done our best to try to guide some of us through some of you who have experienced tremendous tragedy. And this morning we're going to get a first-hand account from my daughter, Tricia. I'm not going to steal any of her thunder. I'll let her take it from here. And Kendall, her daughter, is also going to be speaking with us today.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry, my voice is already shaky. I get nervous, and I'm a crier anyway. I cry about everything, like good, bad, ugly, everything. I am Terry's long-winded daughter, and I promise you I came by it very naturally. And I'm sure most of you know that by now. But I'm 46 years old, or 45, how old am I? I'm 46 years old. And mama of three. They're all three here. And I'm super nervous because I've never really done this in front of all my family. And I usually do it just in front of women. And so this is new. And I'm also going to try to cut it way down because I tend to talk really, really long. And this is a different situation. But we live in Booker, Texas, just down the road, just over the border. And I now have the privilege of living my dream, which is pretty much chasing my kids around and being pretty much a stay-at-home mom. I do work a few part-time jobs, but very flexible, so I am blessed in that. But I just want to start with a story of how I met my late husband and just kind of tell you our story. So Justin and I started dating in May of 2002. His parents helped with the youth group at a church across town. I still was living at home and attended my dad's church, and we didn't have a youth group. I was actually 19 at the time, so a little old for youth group, but there was nothing else in town for people my age, and I just craved that connection with people, and so I went to their youth group, and Justin's cousin was the youth pastor. His parents were very involved, and I got to know them very, very well. And one night, their son, named Justin, came to youth group, and we all, after church, a big group of us would always go out to eat. We went to Chili's. There was about 20 of us, and I sat across from Justin, and him and I just really hit it off. And that was the first time I had ever met him, and so his mom and I, like I said, were very close, and so I reached out to her the next day, and I said, hey, can you tell me about your son, because I kind of had a little crush after that night, and she told me that he was actually in a really bad relationship, and he was not really living for the Lord at the time, and she just asked me if I would pray for him. And at the time, I was a list prayer. I wrote down my prayers and prayed off that list every day and put Justin's name on there, and I did not pray selfishly. I didn't pray because I had a crush on him. I prayed because a friend asked me to pray for him, and so I prayed for Justin for quite a while. I couldn't even tell you the exact timeline, but I prayed for him and then didn't really ask about him or inquire about him for a while, and then his mom came into Chili's one night, which is where I worked at the time. I'm sorry, can you bring me a Kleenex? I had Kleenexes and then I forgot to grab them. And she asked me, so what's your situation right now? Because Justin is out of that relationship and he's doing much better, and I was wondering if I could set you guys up on a date, if I could give him your number. And so I told her, of course she could. And So he called me the next day. I happened to be working at Chili's on a Sunday. I didn't ever work at Chili's on Sundays, but it was Mother's Day. It was the busiest day of the year, so they made us all work. And he asked me if I could go on a date with him the next night, in which I told him, no, I'm sorry. I watch Monday Night Wrestling with my friends on Monday nights, so we'll have to put it off until Tuesday. And so on that Tuesday night, he came to pick me up, and I could go on and on about our first date and all the things I thought, but I'll just tell you that I knew that night that he was the man that I would marry. I came home to my mom and had a huge grin, and I think she knew as well. And so it was a very quick, our first date was May 14th, and then he proposed to me on August 7th in front of the church, and then we were married on January 3rd and of the following year. And so we didn't even date 8 months, and it was just one of those situations where you know. And so we moved to Wichita, Kansas. Shortly after that, we started our marriage in Abilene, Kansas, where he was currently working. But like I said, I worked at Chili's. I had gotten a promotion, which moved us to Wichita, Kansas. And so we were married in 2003. We had our first son, Tristan, in 2005. Very quickly, unplanned, we had our second son, Chase, less than 2 years later in 2007. And then I just had this nagging desire to have a little girl, and I begged and begged and begged Justin, and he had wanted 1 kid in the first place, and so 3 was asking a whole lot. And I finally, one day, I think he thought, okay, I know how I'll make it where she won't want another kid. I'll just tell her, if you get me an AR, if you let me have a new gun, I get to build it, pick it out, then you can have your daughter, or you can have another kid. But he said, but if it's a boy, we're done. I know you want a girl, but we're done, no matter what. And so I said, deal. And so a few months later, he had his gun, and I had my daughter, and our daughter, and which he was totally fine with. She became wrapped around his little finger very, very quickly. But at that time, we were struggling pretty bad financially. He owned his own lawn business, and it was great in the summertime. Very stressful, and I was doing home daycare. And so I had to take off work knowing I was about to have a baby, and then work was really slow because it was wintertime, and so lawn business in the wintertime can be rough if you don't have snow to remove or other jobs. So we began looking for a different job or a different situation because we were both stressed and struggling. And so I'll save the very long story, but we ended up in Booker, Texas through some friends that we knew, the Skippers, a wonderful family. And Kendall was born on January 16th, and on January 20th, Justin moved on ahead of us to Booker to start his new job there in the oil field, and then that's what took us to Booker. We absolutely love Booker then. We still love Booker now, and I know it was all part of God's plan to get us to Booker, to be in that community for what was coming down the road. So I just want to tell you just a little bit about Justin, because a lot of you don't know. Justin didn't have that privilege, but he was probably the funniest guy I've ever met, and just, you could not embarrass the guy. He lived to make people laugh and just to be the clown and to be the life of the party anywhere that he went. He was very, very creative and artistic, and I always took advantage of that with a lot of ideas I had for kids for school or for Halloween costumes, and our family was just kind of known for that, and he was pretty awesome. I have one picture back there. There's some pictures if you'd like to look, just to get an idea afterwards, but our favorite Halloween costume was when we did the Addams Family, but he was very creative and could make anything happen that I had in my head. But he just was one of those that attracted people. Anyone and everyone loved Justin. The outcasts, the underdogs, the people no one else liked. Young people, old people. He was loved by everybody, and then he just had an awesome testimony. I mentioned briefly, he wasn't living for the Lord at the time when I met him, but he was raised in church, and then he strayed away, and he lived in a life of just drugs and running from God and living very selfishly for a while, and then God delivered him, and he just had a really awesome testimony. And he didn't share it as often as I thought he should, but he shared it when he felt God led him to, and he I still share his testimony often because it has helped so many people, and I pray that it always continues, even after his death. He was the most amazing dad I could have ever asked for my kids, and he was just very hands-on. He loved quality time. That was his love language, was just spending time together as a family, and that was so important to him. He did use them as an excuse a lot to get a lot of the toys he wanted, like four-wheelers and bow and arrows and all these things that he needed for the kids. And but he was just an awesome dad, and he taught them so much in the short little bit of time that he had with them. He was very adventurous. He loved adventure. He had all these dreams of skydiving and driving, on the NASCAR track at over, almost 200 mile an hour and all these things. He didn't get to achieve all of those, but he did get to go skydiving. That was my 40th birthday present for him, and he even talked me into going with him, so he definitely brought me out of my comfort zone a lot, and he just made life so much fun. And I'm so thankful that he was all about quality time, and if we had extra money, we weren't going to go buy things. We were going to spend time together. We were going to buy, we were going to go watch NASCAR, we were going to go to a baseball game, or go to Disney on Ice, or monster trucks, or that's what we always went. He always wanted to spend his extra money on things that we could make memories with the family. So a little bit of the backstory to the night that our lives changed. In 2018, Kendall was going to be in preschool, and we had decided to go back to Kansas and do our school shopping with Justin's mom, with his parents. And so the girls were going to go shopping. Justin and his dad and the boys were going to go fishing. And so we did that. We shopped till we dropped. The boys had a blast fishing, and we just thought, you know what, let's make this a tradition. Let's just do this every year. We'll come back and do our school shopping here with Grandma, and the boys can go fishing. And so that was 2018. In May of 2019, Justin had a work injury, and he got a hernia at work. And so he had to go have just a routine surgery. But a few days later, he was in a lot of pain, and he told me something's wrong, and so we went to the emergency room. And he ended up in the hospital from June 1st to June 16th. At first, they could not figure out what was wrong. Finally, after 8 days, they went in and decided to do an exploratory surgery, and they found out that they had ruptured his colon when they had done the hernia surgery. And so he was totally inflamed and infected at that time, but it was very, very scary. We were afraid he was going to go septic. Honestly, Justin thought he was going to die. He was in so much pain, and just, we already had a cruise planned for our family, and I literally remember him praying in the hospital, God, please just let me get to see the ocean before I die. He really, truly believed he was going to die. But that time in the hospital was a huge blessing, because we got to spend so much good quality time together, and we really realized how precious life is when we really truly thought he was going to die. And we really bonded. It strengthened our family, strengthened our marriage, and just gave us a new outlook on life. He did get out on June 16th. He did have to have a colostomy bag. Like I said, he was a big mess by the time they finally did that exploratory surgery, but it was the plan that we were going to reverse the colostomy eventually. He just needed to have it till his body calmed down and stuff. And so, but he was good to go, just had to learn to live with that for a little while, and very weak and still in pain, but he pushed through, and in July, a little over a month later, we got to go on that cruise that we had planned. Our family never did extravagant vacations. We would usually get away and go to Colorado for a week or a few days, but we didn't do anything super fancy. But that year, we had gotten a good tax return, and Justin's like, we need to just do something super, go overboard. Let's do a cruise. That's what we had done on our honeymoon, and we wanted our kids to experience that. And so in July, about 6 weeks after he got out, or maybe 4 or 5 weeks after he got out of the hospital, we left on our cruise. We had the most amazing time. Got to swim with dolphins and just, do all the things and give our kids the best vacation they had ever had. And it was such good quality family time. And we got off that cruise on July 29th and got home on the 30th, and just a week and a half later, is when our lives completely changed. So we were going to, on August 9th, we were going to head back and go do our new tradition that we had started the year before. We were going to go school shopping and fishing, and so we were waiting on Justin to get off work, and we had talked on the phone and trying to decide which vehicle to use and stuff so he could be ready as soon as he got home and walk out the door, and so we headed out a little after 5, maybe 5:30 that evening to head out on the drive we had done for, I don't even know, 6 years, I think, at the time, already 5 or 6 years at the time, and we headed out, and we stopped in Great Bend. I remember texting his mom because I was like, this is going to be a long stop because Chase had to poop, Kendall had to poop, Justin had to change his colostomy bag. I'm like, well, we'll be there eventually, and that's the last thing I remember. We left there and turned to head towards Ellsworth, and then the next thing that I remember was waking up and pushing an airbag away from me. Most of what I remember from that night, for some reason, is not sight. I remember seeing red and blue. I remember seeing the red and blue lights, but everything else I remember is just sounds, and I don't know why that is. But I just remember total chaos. And I remember hearing Chase asking, is my dad okay? Is my dad okay? I remember Kendall screaming in the car. I remember somebody trying to help me out of the vehicle, and I remember just being in so much pain it hurt to walk, and they were having me walk and go sit in the ditch. And the next thing I remember after that is being in the ambulance, and Tristan was in there with me, and I remember Tristan praying out loud, just praying. And the next thing I remember after that is being in a hospital bed, and I was about to go in for a CT scan, and a police officer came in and let me know that my husband had not survived, and he died instantly from blunt force trauma to the heart. And then I remember Kendall screaming in the background. She didn't know about her daddy, but she was getting stitches at the time. But my memories from the next 12 days are very blurry, very in and out. I remember some things, and a lot of it has just been filled in by family and friends. But Chase had been care flighted to Wichita immediately from the scene. And I had been taken to a different hospital until they did the CT scan, and then they decided to take me to Wichita as well. I was going to need surgery. Oddly enough, it was the same exact surgery Justin had just had in June. I had a perforated colon, and that had to be repaired. Chase had a broken femur. It actually broke through his leg, through his skin, and he had a broken vertebrae and 5 broken ribs and a ruptured spleen. And so he was care flighted for surgery on his leg, and I was taken by ambulance, and then my parents had showed up to the hospital I was in Hoisington before they took me to Wichita, and they took Tristan and Kendall to Wichita. They both had injuries, nothing major. Tristan had concussion, and just both of them beat up and bruised. But I remember telling my parents, I want to tell my kids. I want to be the one to tell my kids about their daddy. And so I had a long ride to the hospital by myself in the ambulance, and my parents weren't able to say anything to my kids in the whole drive there. I got to the hospital in Wichita and was not able to see Chase. He was already in surgery, so I wasn't able to tell him about his daddy. But I remember being wheeled in and just had to tell my kids. I remember Tristan instantly being angry and Kendall just crying, and then I had to leave and go to surgery, which was the worst feeling, to not be able to comfort my kids. But my parents and Justin's parents are the ones that had to tell Chase. I don't even know at what point the next day. I think Chase kind of knew deep down. I think he kind of knew that it probably wasn't good. But what had happened, going back to the accident, there was a kid that was driving. He was driving legally. He did have his license legally, but he should not have. He was legally blind. And we were coming up, well, we were just driving along the highway. There was a guy stopped at an intersection waiting to turn. and this kid came up behind the guy and did not see him, stopped waiting to turn until the very last second, so he swerved to miss him and swerved into our lane and hit us head on. And so, anyway, the next 11 days in the hospital are very in and out. I remember so many people coming to visit us, people that drove all the way from Booker. We had also lived in Wichita previously, and that's where we were in the hospital, so lots of Wichita friends, lots of family came from Colorado, Kansas City, everywhere just to visit us and be with us. And we had to plan the funeral in the hospital, not knowing when the funeral was going to be exactly. It was going to be after I got out. Chase was released after a few days. He was wheelchair bound. He had to wear a back brace, and he required a lot of help just to be able to get around and function and take care of himself. But anyway, after we got out of the hospital 11 days later, we had the visitation, and then the next day we had his funeral, which was an awesome funeral. Lots of people came from all over. But since the accident, we've done a lot of growing and a lot of healing, and my kids are the most resilient people I've ever met. But grieving while I was trying to heal physically, while I was trying to help my kids heal and help them with their grief, it was very overwhelming. But God has provided every step of the way. My nephews, who are both here, lived in California at the time, and Will was the first one who just felt like God called him to move to Texas to live with us to help us out for the next several months. He was already in college, had a job, and gave up his life and his plans to come live with our family. And a few months later, his brother did the same. And Will and Drew were always my boys' like role models and their heroes. They just loved Will and Drew. They looked up to him so much. So to have them come help us through this hard, difficult time, it was the biggest blessing in the world. They helped with the sports, like just training, getting Tristan back in shape and healthy, and they helped with Chase, who couldn't even shower and get dressed and stuff by himself for a while, and they're a huge blessing. One of my favorite stories to tell, because God has brought a lot of good out of our accident, even though it seems like so much bad happened. But Will is one of my favorite stories, because Will had a totally different plan for his life, and he was going to school and he was going to be a physical therapist. And long story short, he came to live with us. He was doing an internship even with a physical therapist, but then he decided to go to school at WT, and he met a professor and just through some of his classes kind of decided that physical therapy wasn't for him. He got really involved in a campus ministry, and long story short, he is now the executive director of the Wesley at WT, and I'm so proud of him, and God just totally changed his life and called him into the ministry, even though that's not what he had planned, but he used our accident for that. I truly believe it. But my mom and dad were a huge help too. My mom spent every second with me for several weeks, taking care of me, taking me to appointments, helping me with paperwork. The amount of paperwork and things that you have to do is not fun. It's overwhelming for somebody to try to figure out, insurance, and plus, in our case, police reports and all kinds of things, Social Security. It's just overwhelming. I couldn't have done it without my parents. They helped tremendously. I was doing home daycare in Texas as well at the time, and I couldn't lift or do anything for 6 weeks with my surgery, so I couldn't be lifting babies, and all my daycare parents were so understanding, and when I told them I needed 6 weeks off, I ended up not going back to home daycare at all. To me, the only thing I wanted to do was be with my kids. I wanted to be able to go to every activity, to be present, and daycare kind of hindered that a little bit. And so I did not return to daycare. I had new priorities. But I have since worked several jobs which are very flexible, and God has provided so much along the way. Chase is one of the most athletic kids and most competitive kids you'll probably ever meet. And he was told after his surgery that he could not play sports for a year, which is devastating to a 12-year-old boy that lives for sports. And he's one of the most awesome miracles I've ever witnessed in my life, because 3 months and 1 day after the accident, he was cleared to resume all activity, to play every sport. God healed him so quickly and so miraculously. And then we did go through counseling, all of us separately, but and each for a different amount of time. Each of my kids grieved very differently, and it's such an eye-opener to how different grief can be. It's a different journey for everybody. And Tristan was 13 at the time, and unfortunately so many people put on him, "Oh, you're the man of the house now," which was not very fair to a 13-year-old, but he took on that responsibility, and he felt that he had to be the man of the house. And he was my right hand until he moved out after graduation. He did anything and everything I needed. He's a hard worker. He's awesome. He did hold a lot in. Counseling didn't last very long for him. He didn't let a lot of his grief out. So that's how he kind of grieved. Chase was very different. He had just turned 12 the week prior to the accident, and the hard age anyway, to be in middle school, figuring out who you are, and then losing his dad on top of it. He had so much physical injuries, and then he also remembered more than any of us from the accident. He remembered seeing things and hearing things, and a lot of things that went on that most of the rest of us kind of blacked out. But he had a lot of anger in his healing, and he took a lot of his anger out on Mama, and I didn't think I was going to survive raising him, but I did. And he's grown so much and come so far. And we had the same counselor. They started with a different one, then I switched him to mine, and she just helped me realize that I was a safe place for Chase. So that's why things came out, why he took things out on me. And so she helped us both tremendously in dealing with him. And then Kendall, she was only 5 at the time of the accident. She was very needy, and she needed Mama, and she had a lot of meltdowns. She was also very wise and very mature in her understanding and some of the things she did. She helped me tremendously in my grief process, just because she needed me, and she was so sweet. But she also went through major separation anxiety. Before the accident, she was the most independent little girl. She would stay the night with anyone and everyone, never met a stranger, never cared where Mom was. She just was Little Miss Independent, and she became super clingy to Mom and didn't ever want to be away from Mom, and went through major separation anxiety. But we all went through counseling. We've all grown a lot since then. But God He's so good. He just provided. I literally feel like even now, 6 years later, I feel like God, we just walk around with like this umbrella of just protection and provision, and He has put so many people in our path, from our community to our church, our baseball team that we had at the time, people even from all over the United States, all over the world. He put so many people in our path still that just bless us and give us everything that we need. And I thought it was interesting this morning. I woke up and read the verse of the day in the Bible app, and it was Psalm 68:5. Father, the fatherless, protector of widows, is God in His holy habitation. And I was listening to they do the verse of the day, and then they have somebody kind of explain the verse of the day, and that guy said that one of the biggest tools that God uses to provide for the widows and the orphans and those in need is you. It's people. And He has absolutely done that in our case. So, a few other things since the accident. On holidays, on the 9th of August every year, we've just carried on a lot of traditions. We've carried on a lot of things to keep Justin's memory alive. That's my biggest goal. I don't want him to be forgotten. I don't want his life to have been for nothing. I want God to use it. I want Him to use our story. And so we've done a lot of fun things just with the family, just to remember Justin. We release lanterns sometimes, or release balloons. The first year on the first August 9th of 2020, we went back to the scene of the accident, released butterflies. We've adopted a star. We have gotten tons and tons of gifts. that I love making for my family, blankets and jewelry and pictures and stuff like that. And then we have made acts of service cards, which is probably my favorite thing, that has his name and a verse on it. And so we like to bless people, especially on August 9th, but sometimes throughout the year, just buy someone's meal or just do something nice for somebody and give them a card with Justin's name that we're doing it in honor of him. We've gone out to the shooting range and blown things up because that was one of Justin's favorite things to do. But we've just carried on traditions, things that we've always done, and just try to keep his memory alive. People assume that the first end after the first year. At least you made it through all the first, but really we didn't, and we never will. I mean, I still, 5 years later, had our first graduation, and we're going to have our first marriages, our first grandkids, so many things that he's going to miss out on forever. And so we always have a lot of things to go through, and we always have opportunities to keep Justin's memory alive. In 2020, when COVID hit, right before COVID hit, thank goodness, or it wouldn't have happened, but we did visit the firefighters and the EMS workers that worked our accident that night. It was just really heavy on my heart. I really wanted to do that. I wanted to meet those people because so much of that night was blurry. I didn't remember it. I also wanted to go back to the scene of the accident because I had avoided it for about 7 months. We had gone a different way back to Kansas when we went, and that was an awesome experience. We gave them Bibles and just showed them our appreciation, and we also got to talk and visit and hear their side of the story or fill in some blanks for us that we weren't real sure about. We got to go out to the scene of the accident, put a cross and some flowers, and it was very healing for us. And then just my kids, they are thriving now. It has been 6 years, but they are such good kids. They've overcome so much. Tristan graduated in 2024, and he attended a year of HVAC school, and now he is graduated from that. He's working a full-time job. He owns a home, and he's doing awesome in Kansas. Chase just graduated in 2025 this year, and he's now playing golf in Kansas for Central Christian College in McPherson. And Kendall, she's doing awesome. She got an awesome award at school this year in elementary school for just being a good student and being kind to others and thinking of others. And she does awesome in dance and theater and so many things. And they're thriving, and they're doing so good. And I'm so proud of each one of them. So that's our story. I just want to share some things that I have learned, and like how to treat people after loss. And the reason I share this is because I had no idea. I mean, I guess I didn't know. I remember a specific friend that lost her husband. I don't even remember, a couple of years before I did. And I remember wanting to help her, but I really didn't know how. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know ways that I could actually help her. And I regret that so much now. But there's a few things. One thing is, it was amazing in our little town, people that I didn't know that knew me, and they would come up and just give me a hug and tell me they were thinking of me or praying for me, and it meant so much, even when I didn't know them. And on that same hand, people that I did know very well would put their head down and walk past me and not want to make eye contact with me because it's an awkward situation, and they didn't want to have to face me and didn't know what to say. And I remember after, I don't remember how long, maybe a year or two after, I had a friend in Booker that had lost her sister. And I knew her sister very well. And when I saw her, I ran into her in Dollar General, and I did the exact same thing that I hated that people did to me. And I saw her, and I panicked. I didn't even grab what I needed, and I ran out of the store because I was like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. And then I was immediately convicted when I got back to my car. And God was like, this is exactly what you went through, and you know how it feels. And so I walked back into Dollar General, and I just walked up to her, and I just gave her a hug. And we just stood there in the aisle just sobbing and just hugging. And that's all. I didn't even say a word. Didn't have to say a word. That hug just meant so much. It means that you do care, and I think that's just, you don't have to say anything. You don't have to have the right words. But don't avoid them. Just a hug. Just I'm thinking of you, or something simple. And then just so many things I cannot even tell you that people did that just blew my mind. I wish I would have thought of them sooner when I knew people grieving, but we had
probably the longest meal train ever. It lasted for literally months, people bringing us food every single day, which is awesome, incredible. Will and Drew can probably agree that maybe not chicken every single meal, but it's so, we were so appreciative. But we had, I mean, people even thought of our dogs. We had people bring dog food and get them flea treatments. We had people bring us tons of meat for our freezer, knowing I had growing boys. We had people buy all of our school supplies, got the kids' school clothes, had my car cleaned, had the oil changed for me, had my house cleaned before I even came home. People paid for Kendall's dance and gymnastics, and just brought us gift cards. And then also just things that Justin did. We had people take the boys hunting. We had somebody take Chase to a football game down at a college football game, and just letting us know that they're thinking of us, thinking of our kids, trying to keep, help their lives continue on. And just so many wonderful things. I think just, you don't need to ask what they need, because honestly, if you asked me right after, I didn't know what I needed. Life was just overwhelming. The one thing I needed, I couldn't have, which was my husband. So just the people that said, hey, I'm going to come take your kid, and we're going to go do this, that's a huge blessing. Or, hey, I'm running to the store, what can I grab for you? Just be specific, and just don't be afraid to just do stuff. And then the last thing I would say is so many people are afraid to say your loved one's name. They're afraid it's going to trigger something, or you're going to, have a meltdown, but absolutely not. I don't ever forget that Justin died. Saying his name is the greatest gift to me. I love to hear his name. I love to hear you talk about him, to share memories of him. It's the greatest blessing. So don't ever think that you're going to stir up something. I think probably the majority of people would agree that's the biggest blessing, is to hear your loved one's name. So I titled my talk, Thankful for the Scars. For a while, I do have a big scar where I was cut open for my surgery. I have some scars on my leg from the burns, from the airbag, but I was embarrassed of my scars. I tried to hide them, not that I show my belly all the time, but sometimes at CrossFit, my shirt would come up, and I was just ashamed, and I hated it, just seeing it in the mirror. I didn't want to see my scar. It hurt, and it just reminded me of that night and what I lost. And so even the same with Chase, just seeing his big old scar down his leg, it just was a reminder. We also have a lot of emotional scars. Scars from the trauma, from the loss, and the deep pain. My heart just felt like it was ripped out of my chest, and I didn't know how to teach it to beat again. My kids have scars as well. That'll never go away. But a huge part of my healing has been through music, and one day I heard the song Scars by I Am They, and actually I had heard it a lot, but for whatever reason this day, I really truly heard the song. And here are the lyrics. Waking up to a new sunrise, looking back from the other side, I can see now with open eyes. Darkest water and deepest pain, I wouldn't trade it for anything, because my brokenness brought me to you, and these wounds are a story you'll use. So I'm thankful for the scars, because without them I wouldn't know your heart. And I know they'll always tell of who you are. So forever I am thankful for the scars. Now I'm standing in confidence with the strength of your faithfulness, and I'm not who I was before, and I don't have to fear anymore. I can see how you delivered me. In your hands and your feet I found my victory. I can see how you delivered me. In your hands and your feet I found my victory. I'm thankful for the scars, because without them I wouldn't know your heart. And with my life I'll tell of who you are, so forever I'm thankful. So now my scars have a whole new meaning. My scars can be a reminder of the night when myself and my 3 babies walked away from an accident that should have killed all of us. And speaking of that, there's some pictures of the truck back there on that table as well. It truly is amazing. We're truly miracles that we walked away. Now my scars remind me of how far God has brought us, and they give me a story to tell of his goodness, of his provision, his protection, and his love. I wanted to read a little part from a devotional by V.J. Thanghiel called Turn Your Wounds into Scars. Life is full of pain and suffering at times. A scar represents pain endured. Scabs protect wounds until they're put back together and functional again. A scar is formed when that wound is healed. However, this is speaking merely of physical scars. When a scar is emotional or spiritual, it cannot be called a scar if it has not healed. If you have a physical wound and it doesn't heal, you would never call it a scar. But you would also keep working to clean it of all infection, medicate it, treat it with care, and give it time so that it can heal. Yet so often we neglect to give the same care, attention, and patience to wounds that exist in the heart and mind. Some emotional scars and wounds that are in desperate need of a treatment may have been ignored for years. Ignoring these types of scars and wounds may result in serious psychological damage. It's important not only to recognize when you have an emotional wound, but also to know what is needed to heal the hurt. For me, it was sharing openly and writing on Facebook to get it all out of my head and out of my heart. I was very vulnerable and open, and in return I received so much encouragement and love and support. I also started going to counseling much later than my children, but it was a huge help to get it out and to get feedback and new perspectives and reassurance that everyone grieves differently. There's no right or wrong way to grieve. There's no timeline for you to be able to function again, for you to quit crying every day, for you to move forward with your life. Dr. Lois Tonkin says, people think grief slowly gets smaller with time, but the reality is grief stays the same size, but slowly life begins to grow bigger around it. That really resonated with me. Our life is growing again. God has added new relationships, new opportunities, new successes and achievements, and I really feel like sharing my testimony is part of that growth and new beginnings. Initially, I didn't think I could function as a single mom or a widow, and I didn't think I could move forward from the trauma. But I quickly determined that I would make sure that our tragedy didn't happen for nothing. I would cling to God's promise in Romans 8:28 that everything works together for our good, and just to hold more tightly than I've ever held on to what's always been my favorite verse, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. I became determined that one day I would share my story and allow God to use our tragedy to help others. I have many scars, and I even know I still have a few open wounds that haven't even turned to scars. But I also understand the importance of healing, and I'm still in that process and probably always will be. I know I'm not the only one. Whether physical, emotional, spiritual, or relational, whatever your scars, or even possible wounds that aren't even scars yet, God knows about them. He sees them and He sees you. Maybe it's time that you too take the step to heal your wounds and allow them to turn to scars, to be reminders of everything that you've endured, and to allow you to come out stronger. If your wounds are already scars, maybe it's time to show them. Scars can be ugly, but they remind us of the awesome healing that has happened. Maybe your scars will encourage others that no matter what life throws at them, pain and suffering is part of life, but wounds can heal. Today, I don't know exactly how to tell you to begin your healing process for your wounds or your sharing process for your scars. All I know is that I could not imagine getting through this journey without God. I don't know how people do it. He's so good. Maybe you just start with praying, or maybe you need to dig into His Word. Maybe you need to listen to worship music. I mentioned worship music is so healing for me. I have a playlist with, I think, 90 songs now of just worship music, and they've spoken to me all along in this journey. I still listen to them often, and especially when I need a good cry. I don't know what the next step is for you, but I encourage you to take the next step. Keep moving forward. Don't allow yourself to stay stuck or for your wound to fester and get infected. I encourage you not to keep your scars hidden either. Our scars are a story that God can use. Allow Him to use them. I want to share the lyrics to one more song called Scars in Heaven. If I had only known the last time would be the last time, I would have put off all the things I had to do. I would have stayed a little longer, held on a little tighter. Now what I'd give for one more day with you. Because there's a wound here in my heart where something's missing, and they tell me that it's going to heal with time. But I know you're in a place where all your wounds have been erased, and knowing yours are healed is healing mine. The only scars in heaven, they won't belong to me and you. There will be no such thing as broken. All the old will be made new. And the thought that makes me smile now, even as the tears fall down, is that the only scars in heaven are on the hands that hold you now. I know the road you walked was anything but easy. You picked up your share of scars along the way. But now you're standing in the sun. You've fought your fight and your race is run. The pain is all 1,000,000 miles away. There's not a day that goes by I don't see you. You live on in all the better parts of me. Until I'm standing with you in the sun, I'll fight this fight and this race I'll run, until I finally see what you can see. The only scars in heaven, they won't belong to me and you. There'll be no such thing as broken. All the old will be made new. And the thought that makes me smile now, even as the tears fall down, is that the only scars in heaven are on the hands that hold you now. Isn't that the goal? Isn't that what we're living for eternity in heaven? If I could wish Justin back right now, I wouldn't. He's completed his race and he is healed. He doesn't have his colostomy anymore and he is living with Jesus. No longer in pain. Now I just get to continue to share his story and our story until the day God calls me home. One more thing I read that resonated with me so much is that God does not make mistakes. As much as my life and my story did not go the way I ever dreamed or would have planned, our accident and Justin's death did not catch God off guard. It was all part of his plan from the start, and he put things into place years in advance. Our move to Booker, to be in an awesome community, my financial situation with a company that I worked with that I still continue to make money from residual income, and then our life insurance. And I'd like to always share, we weren't just two responsible adults that knew we needed life insurance. It was all God that put that into place, because my dad wanted to get life insurance on us girls, and I already had it through Chili's. So he said, why don't you let me get it on Justin? And so we had a life insurance policy on Justin, and that was a huge blessing and something that was a total God thing. But God does not make mistakes, and he does not have a plan B. There is no second best with God. I am living the next chapter of my life, and it's God's intentional next chapter, and it's filled with his purpose and his presence. And then the last thing I want to share about is our next chapter. And I wrote a really long thing, and I'm not going to read all of it. I'm just going to read some parts of it, but it just explains. I am engaged now. I do have a fiance, and he's sitting right there next to Kendall. His name's Ben. But I did struggle a lot when I started dating Ben and when I knew I was ready to move forward. And I just had a lot of conflicting feelings. And so I'll just read a few parts of what I wrote because it explains it better than me trying to ramble it on right here. I truly believe that everyone grieves differently. I also truly believe that every loss is different. And the loss that I can speak on is losing my spouse. When I lost Justin, I didn't just lose my husband. I lost my best friend, my parenting partner, our provider, a body next to me in bed every single night for 16 years. The comfort, the safety, the security, the familiarity of daily routine, my dreams, my plans, my goals, literally everything changed. Because of all those things, I'm no longer the Trisha that I was when I married Justin. I've changed so much in ways I never dreamed. I've had to play the role of a single parent, make tough decisions and discipline and train and teach my children all on my own. I had to take a conceal and carry class, install a security system, and be scared to be alone or leave my kids alone more times than not. I had to find new ways to bring in income to provide for my family, but still be able to be present at their activities. I had to give up dreams that I didn't have the strength to keep dreaming and that seemed unachievable without the person who cheered me on and participated in the activities to get me to those dreams and goals. I had to learn to sleep alone, to wake up alone, or as I'm guilty of, to allow Kendall to sleep with me most nights so that I had someone next to me in bed. For the first few years, I had to learn to write and just be vulnerable and get my feelings out because I could no longer share those feelings with Justin. Because I had to learn to take care of me so that I could be the mom I needed to be for my kids. I developed a daily habit I was never in my life consistent at, and that was daily Bible reading and devotions, just to start my day every day. I've grown so much spiritually and gained strength that I never knew was possible and never felt I needed when I had Justin to be there, to be my strength. I've also added CrossFit to my daily routine, close to 5.5 years now, another thing I can thank my nephews for. I go 5 to 6 days a week, no excuses. I feel great physically. I'm stronger than I ever dreamed in that aspect as well. And I just think about life differently now. I love deeper, I forgive easier. I see the good in people so much more than I ever did before. I want to love people into the kingdom more than I ever cared to before. I hate to say that. I parent differently. I have different priorities now. I have different dreams and goals. So with all of that being said, in a way, I don't even feel like the old me moved forward. In a sense, the old me died with Justin. The new me wants a fresh start in life and to have the ability to love and be loved again. I don't want to stay stuck and sad and depressed for the rest of my life. I deserve to be happy, and my kids deserve a mom who's happy. I love Justin, and I will always love Justin. He'll always have a piece of my heart. He'll always be the father of my children. I'll always cherish all the memories we made and the person I was when I was married to him. He'll always be my first true love. He'll always be my husband in heaven. But guess what? I love Ben too. I didn't seek to find Ben. We just reconnected on Facebook. I say reconnected because we did know each other growing up in the same small town. We slowly started communicating on each other's posts, began a conversation on Messenger that turned into more conversations, that turned into phone calls, that turned into meeting up for coffee, that turned into dating and even falling in love. I can never imagine a man wanting to willingly walk into my situation. A single mom of 3 kids, 2 of them being teenage boys, that was married to her husband for over 16 years and still loved him. No ill feelings, no nasty breakup, just a broken, grieving heart. She still wants to talk about him. She still has pictures hanging all over her house of him and their kids and their happy life. That's hard. I know it can't be easy on Ben, but he has walked in, chosen to love me and my kids anyway, and given me so much grace. He has helped me heal tremendously and grow in so many ways. He's been patient with me. He's developed the closest, sweetest relationship with Kendall and put out so much effort and come a long way with my boys to be their friend, not their dad, and to be a role model in their lives. He is rare and a treasure, and I'm forever grateful for him. Ben and Justin are 2 totally different people. Ben will never fill Justin's shoes because he can't. No one can. Because I am no longer the Trisha that was married to Justin anyway. It would be impossible to even try. Ben is so different in so many ways, and I love so many things about him that are different. He's similar to Justin in the biggest way, with a sense of humor and ability to make me laugh, and in prioritizing quality family time. 2 of the things that I'll always love in any human. Ben is so patient. He has the biggest servant heart of anyone I've ever met. He has an amazing work ethic. He loves to work out and eat healthy. He loves sports. He loves my kids. He prioritizes me and my kids. He loves his family, and he loves Jesus and his church. Since our very first phone call, we've prayed together every single night and every single morning. He's done a big majority of my devotions with me, and he holds me accountable spiritually. He encourages me. He helps me make decisions with a new perspective in most cases. He challenges me to be the best version of me that I can be. When I said that I felt so conflicted, here's what I mean. I love 2 men. Justin was my love for 17 years. I still consider him my husband in heaven. But I feel guilty for Ben if I call Justin my husband or my love. Ben has been my love for 4.5 years. I consider him my love, my fiance here on earth. But I feel guilty for Justin if I say that. I think about the love and life I had with Justin, and I long for the days when I had a comfortable routine and the safety and security and my happy little family living all under one roof. Life seems so much simpler then. But then I think about all the things I've gained since his death, all the growth and understanding and perspective changes, and I think about never reconnecting with Ben, and I can't imagine not having him in my life. It's weird and probably doesn't even make sense, but it's a constant struggle between old Trisha and new Trisha, and being happy in both scenarios, and being sad thinking about losing the old Trisha, but also being sad thinking about never having the new Trisha. So I have to be content in knowing that God knows, and God has a plan. And I'm living out that plan right now in the present with Ben. No what ifs or if onlys. Just now and today, the present. This is my life. And I'm going to be happy. I'm not going to care what others think, or at least try really hard not to. And I'm going to allow God to use my past, my present, and my future for his glory and for his kingdom. I'm still figuring it all out. But I have to be in the present and be okay with my current situation, even if others are not. I'm doing the best I can in navigating a situation I never imagined myself being in, and trusting God along the way. He has never failed me, and I know He won't start now. I could never have gotten through the last 6 years without God being front and center, and I plan to keep Him front and center for the rest of my life. He's so good to me. That is my story, and I thank you all for letting me share. And now my daughter is going to share just a short little part of her story as well. This is her very first time. I know she's very nervous, so I told her it's okay if she just reads it. She doesn't have to just talk. And so, you want to come on up, Kendall?
Hello guys. This is my first time sharing my testimony, so I wrote down my thoughts, and I will just read it for my first time. So, my name is Kendall, and I'm Trisha's daughter. My grandpa asked me to share about what I remember and how much I've grown in the last 6 years. So I was only 5 years old when our family got in the car accident. I remember me and Chase were watching a video on his phone in the back of the truck, and then boom. I think I was passed out for 2 or 3 minutes because when I opened my eyes, Tristan and my mom were not in the truck. I was just so in shock, I tried to move, but I couldn't. I could only move my neck, so I looked to my right to see Chase's bone popped out of his leg. And I hear him screaming, "Is my dad okay?" When I hear him say that, I look at my dad and he is hunched over, his head in between the seat and the door. Then I hear him snore, which I thought at the time was him sleeping, and I thought he would be okay. But later on in life, I realized that was his very last breath. The next minutes were a big blur, and the next thing I remember was me in the ambulance. I was so tired, but the fireman would not let me go to sleep. So then I asked him if he would pray with me. Then, only a couple weeks ago, did the fireman reach out and tell my mom that I said, "I think my daddy has died." I remember I was in the hospital, and I was screaming because I had stitches in my foot. Then I had to go with my grandparents in the car. At another hospital, I walked into a room, and all the doctors and nurses were crying, and I wondered what was wrong. That is when my mom told me that my daddy had died, and then she had to go to surgery. That was all I remembered from that night. Fast forward to a month or so later. Then I was in kindergarten. The school brought an ambulance for the class to look at and for them to tell all about. I guess the ambulance was just a trigger for me, so I had a huge meltdown. And my mom came over to comfort me. Another time later that year, I was in dance, and the dance teacher played the song that was at my dad's funeral. And again, I had a meltdown and started crying. My mom had to come pick me up, but when my mom came, I said that I didn't get to do my free dance. So they wanted to let me do it, and they started playing a different song. But I told them no, I wanted to dance to Daddy's song. About 2 years ago, I went to my grandma's work, and for lunch break, we went to Arby's. When we were coming back, someone ran a stop sign and crashed into her car. It could have been way worse, but thank goodness it wasn't. But it triggered something inside of me, and I just had a huge meltdown again, in front of what felt like 1 million people. And my grandma held me while I trembled in her arms, just crying and scared. Over the past several years, I've had a lot of meltdowns, crying because I miss my dad, and eventually my mom took me to counseling. My counselor told me a verse that has gotten me through everything. 2 Timothy 1:7. For God did not give us the spirit of fear, but the spirit of love, power, and a sound mind. And I say this every time my grief shows up, or I am scared, or when I am down, and especially when I went through separation anxiety, because I did not like being away from my mom. Another thing that has helped me with my grief is dance. Dancing brings peace to my heart. The past several solo dances I have done have been songs about God's love and just songs that made me feel closer to my dad. Dance is one way I express my emotions, and through those songs, I can share my grief and happiness. One more thing that is just on my heart to share is how grief works. My mom told me this and showed me a picture, and it has just stuck through me every day. So imagine the grief is a diamond ball, and the jar is you. The diamond ball stays the same. It doesn't get easier or harder. It doesn't get smaller. It stays the same. But the jar, or people, grow bigger around it. I have the perfect example. A couple weeks ago, I just had one of those days, and I missed my dad. I just looked at pictures and listened to voicemails and anything that could help. Even 6 years later, the grief was still there. I don't have meltdowns very often anymore, so I'm growing, but I still have them, and it will always hurt. But it's a learning process that will go on until the day I die. This is just a glimpse of my story, and I hope that it helps someone, or I hope God helps someone. So thank you for letting me share, and bye.
Thank you, Trish. Thank you, Kendall. I just want to say to you that God is so good, isn't he? He's never failed. He never will. And I'm just so thankful that God has made it possible for Trish to share her story. I don't know whether she wants me to tell this or not, but just this last week she talked to a publisher who wants her to write a book about the journey she's been on, so we're looking forward to that. I want you to stand with me, and as we dismiss this morning, I think it's only fitting that we sing an old hymn that kind of puts everything that Tricia has shared with us in perspective this morning. What a day that will be, number 762. There is coming a day when no heartache shall come, no more clouds in the sky, no more tears to dim the eye. All is peace forevermore on that happy golden shore. What a day, glorious day that will be. What a day that will be when my Jesus I shall see, and I look upon his face, the one who saved me by his grace, when he takes me by the hand and leads me through the promised land. What a day, glorious day that will be. There'll be no sorrow there, no more burdens to bear, no more sickness, no pain, no more parting over there, and forever I will be with the one who died for me. What a day, glorious day that will be. Oh, what a day that will be when my Jesus I shall see, and I look upon his face, the one who saved me by his grace, when he takes me by the hand and leads me through the promised land. What a day, glorious day that will be. Lord Jesus, I think we can all agree this morning that we look forward to that day when there'll be no more sorrow, no more pain, no more dying, and we'll be with you forever. But until that day, Lord, keep us faithful. Help us to trust in you. Help us to know that you will never, ever leave us or forsake us, even to the end. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, before you leave, I would encourage you, I'm going to have Tricia go on back, Tricia and the kids go on back, and just allow them to greet you and to thank you for being here this morning. And we have potluck, and we'd like for each of you to join us. Anyone who can, you are welcome to have some fun and food and fellowship. And thank you for being here today. May God bless.